A pleasant day to all of you. Today, we are going to see some of the question answers of the poem The Stolen Boat. As I already told you, Stolen Boat was written by William Wordsworth, which brings out the emotions of guilt that he had in him after the stealing of the boat which was moored by the riverside. So, let's see the questions of the poem. Page number 110. What does her in the first line refer to? This is the first question. And the answer to this is the word her refers to the boat. Okay? Next. Where was the boat moored? So where was the boat moored? Moored means tied to. So the boat was tied to a willow tree. Okay? Next. Or we can also write it as a willow tree which was within a rocky cave. Both are correct. Next. What does home in line 3 refer to? What does home refers to here? So whose home it is? The boat's home. Correct. So for the third question, the home for the boat was the place where it was tied. So you have to mention the word the willow tree which was in a big rocky cave. So you have to write that. Okay. What does her in the line 4 refer to? Her in the line 4 refers to the boat. Okay. Why does the poet use the word her and home while talking about the inanimate boat? You see, the poet is actually a nature lover, and you know very well that every person who loves the nature always calls the nature as her, because nature has a feminine quality. Hence, for the inanimate forms of the nature, including that for our living, he feels that they all have a feminine characteristics. Therefore, he calls the boat as her, or with a female pronoun. Next. What stealthy act does the boy commit? So what does a stealthy act he commit? He commits a stealthy act of stealing the boat in such a way that nobody could catch hold of him. And he calls that stealthy because it's not very easy to do such acts. Next, 8th question. What visual picture is created in lines 8 and 10? Please go to the page number 107. What does he say? Small circles glittering idly, leaving behind us still on either side, small circles glittering idly in the moon, until they mental all into one track. So what does the poet telling here? It affects the boat movement in still waters. As boat cuts through the water, it leaves behind small circles glittering idly in the moon until they all melt into one track. In the sense that whenever the boat moved, the water used to create ripples. The ripples used to reflect the moonlight, and hence they used to create a visual picture of the moon being circled idly. Okay, that is the answer for 8th one. Next, 9th one. What does they in the line 10 refer to? What does they refer to? They refers to the movements of water of small circles in reflecting the moon. Okay, next. How many peaks are mentioned in the poem? Which one is the bigger? So there are 2 peaks mentioned in the poem. If you want to see that, go to page number 108, page number. So you can see that there's a line there. The horizons bound a huge peak, black and huge. Okay, when from behind that craggy steep till then. So there are 2 peaks mentioned in the poem, and which one was the bigger? The peak that was black and huge was the bigger one. Next, 11th question, first one. What is the boat compared to in lines 19 and 20? The boat is compared to a swan. The purpose of this comparison is for what? Why does the poet compare the boat to the swan? Because of the graceful movement of the boat. Just as if you see the swan, no, it moves with grace in a water. Similarly, the boat also has done. In the expression troubled pleasure, what pleasurable experience of the narrator does pleasure refer to? You see, if you see this particular line, troubled pleasure, it is a figure of speech called oxymoron. Okay, friends? So, what is an oxymoron? An oxymoron is a figure of speech in English that conveys two opposite ideas. For example, now if you see the troubled pleasure, troubled is opposite of pleasure and pleasure is opposite of trouble. So there are two opposite words that are being combined and made into a single word. So that is called as an oxymoron. So what was the pleasure that the poet enjoyed? The pleasure that the poet enjoyed was that of the rowing of the boat in the water and able to explore the wonders of the nature. Next, the narrator's pleasure is troubled because dash. The option is 1. His conscience pricks him on his stealthy act, that he was guilty of his act. Okay. Next, read carefully lines 21 to 26. Draw a picture of the black and huge peak. They're asking. Okay. So what you must write for this? You must say. So what does the black and huge peak mean here? That is the boy, because he was traveling in the night. Okay. Draw in the sense you should not draw the hill. You should write as because the boy was traveling in the hills, in the waters, he couldn't see the proper picture of the hill and so he calls it black because it was a moonlit night. And next, pick out the details of the peak that appear fearful to the boy. What are the details which the poet tells that it was fearful for the boy? Come to page number 108. You can see there he says, of sea or sky, no colors of green fields, but huge and mighty forms that do not live, like living men move slowly through the mind by day and were a trouble to my dreams. So the hills are not troublesome. The boy visualizes them as troublesome and very dangerous and appear fearful because he was a very guilty of his act of stealing the boat. The lines refer to the movement of the peak. Is it real or imagined by the boy? It is imagined by the boy because the hills cannot move. It is a guilt that in his conscience that is troubling him. In the boy's imagination, the movement is dash. It is threatening and menacing because he had done a very guilty act of stealing the boat. Name the figure of speech in the 14th question. In the phrase trembling oars, who is trembling? Who is trembling? The boy is trembling. Understand? Name the figure of speech in the expression. It is personification. The boy is trembling because he is of his guilty conscience. Understand? So because he is guilty conscience, whether it is cold or hot, every person will get scared. Okay? They will tremble. The episode of the stolen boat ends with the boy leaving the boat back in its mooring place. Okay, it is given in line 32. The remaining lines of the poem deal with the dash, the lasting memory of the actual experience. Understood, friends? So the option is first one. Okay, 15th question. Now we'll go for the 16th. Wordsworth defined poetry as emotion recollected in tranquility. What dominant emotion of the boat experience is recollected by the poet? Yes. The emotion of being guilty of committing a sinful act or a stealthy act of stealing the boat from its moored place is what is being recollected by the poet because he is punished by the nature. Okay. For committing such a grave act. Many days after the stolen boat experience, the narrator was haunted by a mysterious presence within him. Pick out the details of this mysterious presence from lines 37 to 34. Okay. So what will you write? The narrator says that after many days of the actual experience, the hills, the meadows, the trees, everything, instead of looking as inanimate objects. For in the poet's or the boy's mind, it looked as if the hills had become living beings and that they were moving slowly through the mind, and if by the day they were causing a heavy trouble to him by creating haunted dreams in his mind. So this is the comprehension questions of the poem Boy's Stolen Boat. I hope you all enjoyed this poem and learnt a good lesson from the poet of this lesson. I hope that you keep studying and continue to do this. Okay, continue to practice and be perfect. Jai Shri Krishna.